there, this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. I am your host, Neena Perez, and we are here to discuss life topics to challenge and transform your thinking. Let's do this. So I have someone here who is amazing. He's an amazing podcaster, and his name is Mike Malatesta. And he's a successful entrepreneur and a business executive. He founded, built, and sold one of the largest environmental service companies in the upper Midwest. Currently, he heads up ERC Midwest LLC and is the host of a podcast called How Did It Happen that explores the stories of successful people from all walks of life. And his goal is to share the insights on the best and most impactful ideas to improve as a leader and positively affect organizations and the people around them. So I'm really happy that you're here, Mike. You do have really great people on your podcast. That must be very exciting. You must love that.
Yeah, thank you, Neena. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and yeah, I get a lot of energy out of doing the podcast. It's been a great way for me to connect with people in a very meaningful way and to share some really great stories as well.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. I'm glad that you're here. You have a very good podcast. It's very well done. I think I also heard your episode on Jeff Knowles Inc.
Oh yeah,
Jeff. Yeah. He's amazing. He's also an amazing podcaster. Yeah. He's
a really easy guy to talk to. He's had some really great success in his life. He's a very committed dad. He's got that whole dad thing going on, and he does
have that dad thing going on.
He's got a dad thing going on, but full of energy. Great guy. Jeff Knows Inc. Yeah, it's a great podcast.
Yeah, he's a great guy. But let's get into Mike. So Mike, thank you so much for being here. And if you don't mind, let's just share a little bit about you right now, like who you are. And then we're going to dive in a little bit and get into the nitty gritties.
Sure. Well, first of all, Neena, it's not that often that I do a podcast with someone who lives right down the road from my in-laws. So that's neat. But
yeah.
But about me, so I'm when I was 4 years old, Neena, I lived across the street from a trucking company. It was like a construction company, excavation company. And I would sit on the curb outside of my house in the summer times and watch what was going on over there. And I just loved all of it. I loved the noise the trucks made. I loved the smoke that came out of them. I loved the smell of diesel fuel and the dust and everything. And I just thought to myself, well, my dad was a truck driver as well, but I never got to go to work with him or anything. So this was sort of my way of imagining what that life was like. And I'd watch the guys bring their trucks back at the end of the day, park them in the yard. And I just thought to myself, man, if I could do that one day, that would be the coolest thing ever. And then I forgot all about it for a long time.
Right.
Go to high school, go to college, corporate, at that time in the early 80s, early to mid 80s, this whole thing about entrepreneurs and, owning your own business, it really wasn't that big of a thing, not in the circles I was in. It was more like go to college, become a lawyer, or a doctor or some type of professional accountant or whatever. And then, you've got a career. And that's what I sort of set my goals to. I said, well, I need to get a degree and then a job. But along the way, between my junior and senior year, I did get a job driving a garbage truck. Because I still loved the idea of driving trucks. I just didn't think that was going to be something I would make a career out of. So I got a job because it paid more and I thought it was cool. And it was cool. And I was working with like men. I wasn't working with kids anymore. I was working with men. This was in Philadelphia. And when I got done with that summer, I went to the owner and I asked him, how do I get into this industry? And he pointed me in the direction of these, the corporate trash companies. And I ended up applying and I got a management training position and thought I'd be the CEO of that company one day because I would work hard and I would, do all the right things. And And for 5 years, it looked like I was going to make that. And then I got fired.
Oh,
And so I moved around. I was with them 5 years. I moved around to 4 different states. I was always saying yes. And because I thought if I said yes all the time, that would, that's what you do to move ahead. I still think that, particularly at a young age. And ultimately, I ended up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And as I said, I grew up in the Philadelphia area, so Milwaukee was not a place that I was familiar with. And so after I got let go, I was here. I was married for a little over a year, living here a little over a year. I say here because I'm still in Wisconsin, and I looking at all my options and ended up a guy that I had worked with briefly while I was here reached out to me and said, hey, if you want to start a business, I would like to do that with you. And that sort of reignited that seed that I think was planted in me when I was 4 years old. And we ended up starting a trucking company, trucking wastewater from factories to wastewater treatment plants. And that's how I got started.
Wow. So when you went to college, did you, what were you going to college for?
Well, ultimately, I picked English as my major.
Okay.
And I graduated.
So you followed that path, right?
Of course. Yes. Well, not, what everybody says, well, English, what are you going to be, a teacher? And I never wanted to be a teacher. And I didn't even know what to do with it. But at some point in your second semester, sophomore year at the time, you have to pick a major. And I was not exactly excelling. And I said, well, I can read and I can write, so maybe I'll just stick with, pick English and hopefully get through it. And ultimately, I do think that English is a lot of liberal arts are a great way to plant thinking seeds inside of you, an ability to think and figure things out and argue different positions and stuff. So I'm going to tell you that it worked out great, right. But I didn't choose it for any career reason.
So that the company that you had with the wastewater, is that what you built and then sold? Is that the company?
Yeah. So
okay.
So we started from scratch in 1992, as I said, as a trucking company. And then over the years, we got into different things like actually treating and processing waste ourselves. And then we grew into different states and different locations, so we could be, grow our client base and be closer to clients. And ultimately, we ended up in 5 states. So we had processing facilities in 5 states, and pretty decent sized workforce and a good reputation in the industry.
What made you exit that business or sell it?
Yeah, a couple things. So I had. Well, I guess the short story is I had originally 3 partners. One passed away about 10 years in, and then my other 2 partners, who were a bit older than I was, wanted to, after 20 years, they wanted to, cash out, I guess you'd say. And so I was able to put, together. We were able to put together financing to do that, and then I was, pretty much the sole owner at that point, which was a goal of mine and accomplished that goal. But paying them off restricted the ability, cash ability that we had to grow. So we were kind of hunkered down, which I think I was fine with. And then just out of the blue, someone came to visit and, pitched this idea to me, and it was a publicly traded company that I was familiar with. And ultimately, they put together, not just an offer, but an ability for us to remain what you might call a platform company. And I thought that it was a great opportunity for me and my family, but I also thought it was a very good opportunity for the folks on my team because, we were kind of cash restricted. Now they would be a platform. The company was going to put money into it. There would be a chance for them to grow. move up, get new challenges. And I thought faster than they would if they were with me. And I just thought altogether it made sense. And so then I did it, and I never looked back from the decision.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad it was a decision that you didn't look back. Sometimes we have those decisions and then we're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you were able to move forward. How did your parents feel? You said your dad was a truck driver. How did they feel about you getting into a business with truck driving?
Oh, I think they were very supportive, Neena.
That's good.
Yeah, they were supportive. It was, my parents were always, well, my mom still is. My dad passed away, but they're always very supportive of, what I wanted to do and what I thought I could do. And so, yeah, I think they were probably like, oh gosh, you just get fired from a job, you don't have anything. And now you're going to start this business with some guy you barely know,
right?
In a place you've barely been at, a year or so you've lived here. So there was probably some of that going on, but they didn't, push that in my face or anything.
Yeah, because you're right. I think that, when, that was the mentality too, right? You got into a good job and you kind of grew and you stood there for 30 years and then you retire and then you die. Right. So
yeah.
So you kind of took a whole different approach to entrepreneurship. You just like, you know what? I don't know where I live. I don't know the guy I'm going into business with. I don't have a job. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah. And yes. And I have very few contacts. Like I don't know anybody out here,
That's so funny.
But it turned out okay.
Yeah, I think so. It turned out great. So when you left that, is that when you got into ERC? Or you?
Well, I spent a few years with the new company, with the new owner, to help with the transition and do other things. But about almost 3 years into that, I was really doing no meaningful work any longer. And that was fine with me, by the way, because some of the people on my team were able to move up, and they were doing, they were leading the organization.
Right.
And credit to the company that bought us. I mean, they were happy to keep me on, but I just I just thought, I'm not doing anything here. You shouldn't be paying me for this job, and I need to get I really need to get my butt out of here and start doing something else. And that's right. Those were the motivations.
Sometimes when you are an entrepreneur, you can't help it. You have to be doing something, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think, boy, I think that applies to most humans too. Really, get right down to it. But for me, yes. So after I left, that's when I teamed up with some other folks, and that's when ERC Midwest got started.
Okay, that's awesome. So do you feel like you want to continue into that entrepreneurship? Like, is this something you want to continue doing, building more businesses and stuff? Is that something you do or like to do?
Yeah, I do. So building businesses and supporting entrepreneurs are two of like my main goals. So I, whenever ERC Midwest isn't there anymore, I'm sure I will do something else. But I also love, as an investor and as a collaborator, I love supporting startups and and also established businesses when I can, because I feel like I need to help in some way create or help as many entrepreneurs as I can, because I'm just a firm believer that entrepreneurs, while they have all kinds of flaws, like every human being does,
right,
they're incredible examples of what human beings are built to do.
Yeah, I think this past year too has developed a lot of entrepreneurs, right? I think people had some time to kind of say, what am I doing with myself?
Yeah.
Did you feel that shift in your industry, or as you're looking, because you're also an investor, did you see an uptake in entrepreneurship and different ideas, creativity, things like that?
Yeah, I guess I'd say that from a like a deal flow perspective, yes. I'm not sure a lot of the people that due to the pandemic or whatever, felt like they were going to, explore entrepreneurism or solopreneurs or whatever. I'm not sure that I've been, had the opportunity yet to interact with some of those folks, because it's probably at a, a less developed level so far. But yeah, you read about it and then you see all the jobs that are available that people aren't lining up to take, and you think
I
to
know.
yourself, well, is it the, the aid? Is it the entrepreneurism? Is it, I don't know what it is, but if that's what people are doing, trying their best to become entrepreneurs, I feel like that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about it like that. When I'm a director of a culinary operation, and trying to hire people right now is so much fun. And I realize that nobody's applying, but I didn't think about the fact that you could be right. I mean, a lot of people are probably exploring the fact that they want to be entrepreneurs. In this last year, I know that there's been a ginormous uptake in podcasting, so maybe people are trying to also see how they can monetize that. Podcasting monetization, I find it to be a little bit of a challenge. But did you start doing your podcast before the pandemic or during?
Yes, I started in 2018, so well before. And Neena, I started mine with, I didn't need to make any money. I didn't have something to promote. I just did it for my own curiosity. And that's still the way it is. I don't, I don't promote anything. I don't have ads. I'm just trying to have interesting conversations with people that I like and that I hope other people like. And because I feel like, there are great podcasters who have, are able to put their business together with their podcast. And I think that's a fantastic platform. I just don't have that.
Right.
And so I don't think that's the thing you have to have in order to do and have a successful podcast or be happy with your podcast. But it does help pay the bills. I mean, people think, well, podcasts are like free. Well, they're free to listen to, but they're not free to produce and
edit
and get it out there and promote and all that stuff. It's not free.
No, it's not.
I'm in a fortunate position. I feel that way, where I don't have to force that, but I do watch very carefully what other people are doing, because I feel like there's a lesson in there for me at some point, where podcasting or books and the other things that I'm, trying to do would become, a kind of a business of its own.
Right. So when you said you were curious, what were you curious about? What did you want to do on your podcast?
I wanted to explore high performers, people who've had some success in their life, and I want to understand from their perspective how it happened. And there's two things I want to get out of that. One is, for other people who are similarly minded, I want them to get some new nugget that they're like, oh, okay, I can use that. And then for the other people, these, budding entrepreneurs or whatever they are, I want them to understand and get a sense that the people that I'm talking to may have been, and at some point likely were, just like them.
Right.
And here's what happened to them, or here's what they did that got them from there to, in the next step of where they are now. And if they can do it, you can probably do it. And I'm trying to, I want to inspire people to the extent you can inspire someone to, say, that person was in my shoes. That excuse that I'm putting up right now isn't really an excuse. Look, there's a roadmap. I can try that roadmap.
Right. Oh, that's so good. And that's, kind of like what Straight Talk is too, is just talking to real people. I think we miss it when we think that CEOs or entrepreneurs with big companies and businesses don't have feelings or something as well, right? Like, I feel like you're human. You are human, just like I am. You have a history. You have a life, right? You have emotions. And I think, sometimes people miss that.
we're way more similar than we are different, right?
Yeah,
So
I agree.
instead of focusing on the differences, let's focus on the similarities, because as you said, we're all humans. So we're all capable of pretty much the same things.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the circumstances? What are the action steps? What made the difference? And then
Right.
that's like an education. What made the difference? Okay, that made the difference. Now I can do
Exactly.
that.
Right. Right. So you get unstuck, right? You get
Yeah.
unstuck. Do you feel like you've always had that grit in you to become an entrepreneur, or was that something that you were just like, I don't have a job. I'm living in a place I don't know. Let's do it. Do you feel like that was always in you? Like, I always wonder, I always ask people who have had these beautiful, successful businesses if that's something they've always had in them, that grit, or if it can be developed.
So that's a good question. Grit, I think, can be developed. Like coaches can help you develop
That's
your,
good. Yeah.
or maybe it can be exposed where it may be your natural inclination maybe to keep your grit inside because of the way you were brought up or what some classmates said to you at some point.
Oh,
So
that's
maybe it
good.
can come out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can take someone who has no grit and give them grit. It's not something that I can hand you. So
Right.
if you don't have it and you're not willing to do more work than you uh, think you will have to do, then this is not the path for you. Now, I know that I had that at the time that we started the business? No, I just believed that I did.
Oh, that's good.
And my partner was the same way, and so turned out we at least had what we needed to get where we got. Maybe I didn't have what I needed to get where Bezos is or somebody else, but I had enough to get where we got, and that was that was enough not to fail.
Yeah, that's good. I noticed that, since I started the podcast, well, this year is when I did the shift, when I started to go from a monologue to a dialogue and
Oh,
talking
okay.
talking to entrepreneurs or big thought leaders, not just entrepreneurs, coaches, people who want to use their life to like impact the life of someone else. That's
Right.
what shifted to this year. And I realized so many things, stinking thinking that I had, that kind of stuff, right? Also, just the desire I have, the desire to learn so much. And I also want to be in the room with the smartest people. And you're learning so much about yourself when you start to do podcasting, right? Like you're interviewing people and you're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Or,
Yeah,
they say something that kind of like, oh, that's really strategic. Right. So there's a lot of like really great entrepreneurs. Another thing I noticed about people, Mike, you probably already know this, is that there's really not competition when you're at that higher level. It's more networking. It's more like supporting each other, more than it is competing and cutting each other down. Do you feel that?
it's a great point. So yes, and I'll tell you why. Um, when this is going to sound woo woo, but when your mentality is scarcity, you compete because
Mm,
every dollar matters. And I think there's a point where you need that. You get the beginning, getting off the ground, you that matters, I think.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Later, when you if you're able to switch to sort of an abundance mindset, then collaboration is where the value is.
That's good.
Competition is not who you don't want to benchmark competition. You want to collaborate with people that'll get you where you want to get.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of corporations now, and a lot of companies for that matter, they're comparing themselves against the competition and they're angry with the competition. And I think both of those things are not to say you can't pay any attention, Neena, but both of those things take a lot of energy away from what you're thinking about, what you're actually capable of as
Yeah.
a person, as a team, as an organization. And if you put that energy into that and then found people who could help you accomplish what you want, I think it's just a much better way to approach things than a if I win, you have to lose sort of mentality that comes with competition.
Yeah, I love that you said it's also an abundant mindset, right? Because you realize there's enough for everyone
Right.
when you have that mindset. And that's
Yeah.
that's so key. And something that's completely transformed the way I thought too, because I've come from a bad struggling background, and you start to grow in this mindset like I just got to go get mine, So, and as you start going up and up and up, and you're like, okay, wait a minute, there's really nothing but collaboration here and networking and supporting each other. And I realized that when I'm around big thinkers and I say, I really want to learn a little bit more about that. Can we talk about that? And they're totally like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What, you know, and I don't know who said this, probably lots of people, but this whole notion that if I let you know how I did it, you're going to,
Yeah.
beat me as a result. I know a lot of people have that. I
Hmm.
probably had that at some point or points along my career, but the reality is I could tell 100 people, Neena, how to do something the right way that would be fantastic for them, and 99 aren't going to do it.
Right. Right.
So or maybe 5 of 95 aren't going to do it. I always think that with entrepreneurs, like 5% of the population is willing to do something that 95% of the population isn't.
So
and
true.
and that's an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean that just because you're willing to do it, it's going to work.
Right.
But
Right.
just being willing to do it gives you an advantage over most people.
It really does. And that's why I was asking you before about the grit question too, because
Yeah.
it takes that. It really does. And you're right. I think you can develop it, right? You don't always know you have it. But I think you have to have some of it. You have to want to be uncomfortable, right? Do you also agree with or feel that you need a coach too in every level that you go to? Like, do you always need a mentor or a coach as you keep growing?
Okay. So for the first 10 years of my business, I never had a coach. I never asked for help.
Mm,
I always thought I could do everything myself. And I always looked at asking for help as a weakness. And where did I end up with that kind of thinking? I ended up in what I call the valley of uncertainty, which is the place that people who don't get help go to to die.
right.
They that's where they end
So
up.
good.
They end up there ready to die. And so after that period of time, I began to I be you know I describe it as having I built these walls around myself and in my business, and inside of those walls, I was the smartest person, as you were saying, with your monologues.
Right.
Remember, I was the smartest person, and all the knowledge I needed was right there, and it was something I designed. I made it
Right.
that way, so I got exactly what I asked for, and then I was miserable because nobody was thinking ahead of me, and I was always frustrated as to why.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, so you get what you deserve in life, and you get what you create.
That's
But after
good.
I went into that valley, and I was in a really bad, spot. Like, what do I do? Do I want to quit? Do I want to? All these things. I had a lot of things happen that weren't pleasant, and I did begin to search out ways to get me out of there. And
Mm.
the so I joined a local uh, business association group, and they had little round tables, and that was kind of my first little get outside of my walls kind of
That's
thing.
good.
And then after I got that, then I joined a program called the Strategic Coach.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you're familiar with it. It's a
Oh, yeah.
phenomenal program for entrepreneurs. Joining Strategic Coach, and I was very resistant. After a few years, ended up transforming my life. And then I joined Vistage, and then I joined YPO, Young Presidents
Yep.
Organization.
Yep.
And I just kept. So as soon as I got that taste of it, and again, maybe it's just like the education, the collaboration,
Hmm.
the hey, you're not in this alone. The here's a tool that you've never heard of that can actually help you with what you're, banging your head against the wall with. And so as soon as I got into it, I just went crazy with coaching, and I still do. I still do, because I my experiences in life are only going to teach me so many things, Neena.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not enough. It's
Mm-hmm.
not enough for what I want to be and what I want to become. So I have to go outside and I have to find other people who can help me and are willing to help me, because I have the time to be helped. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever, you go, oh my gosh, a whole day? How am I going to spend a whole day going to some coaching thing? Well, yeah,
Right.
you're right. It's an 8 hour commitment or whatever, and that's a lot. But how much time is it going to save you by going that 8 hours? How much is your life going to be improved? How much more money will you make because you got an idea going there that you never would have gotten if you didn't? I think that that's a real, and I had this disease for a long time, but it's a real disease to say
Mm-hmm.
that I don't have time to do these things. And I feel
Yeah.
like after a certain point, like when you should no longer be gritting every day,
Yeah.
after a certain point, not having time is just you telling me you're lazy and you don't want to do what you have to do anymore.
Right. Wow. That's good. Right. I forgot who it was. I think it was Grant Cardone who said procrastination makes you a liar. And
Mm.
I'm like, ooh, okay. He said, when you procrastinate, you're a liar. I don't listen to you when you're a procrastinator. I'm like, wow, okay, Grant. But you're right, right? I mean, the truth is I always say this too. I think every coach needs a coach, right?
Mhm.
Because you should always be going or I think you should always have a coach or people around your life that are mentors that are a little or much more higher than you are right now, because that's what's going to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, well, I agree. I don't. If someone is, if I'm not aspiring to be, and I don't mean this like personally, more like that person, but if
Mm-hmm.
my goal is to be more successful, let's say, and I'm not putting myself around people who I'm seeing as more successful, then what am I doing? Like how?
Right, right. And that's when you're the smartest person in the room. So
Yeah, exactly.
like you said, right? You built the wall. That was your room. You had
That's
the,
it.
yeah, you had your room.
It's a
That's so
very, very
funny.
comfy place for me to be for a while.
Right. Where
And
do
then
you
it
want to
took
go from here, Mike? What
turned on
do you
me.
have things you like have ahead of you well, you're in a strategic coach. So I'm sure that you have a bunch of plans going on here.
Yeah, so I'm actually not in the program right now.
Hmm.
So I was in it for a long time, and I still consume all of um, the material. But
Hmm.
the business that I'm in right now is not like the trajectory of it is not something that I that makes sense for me with coach. But I am in, as I mentioned, Vistage, YPO. I'm
Hmm.
also in Abundance 360. So if you have you heard of Abundance
I
360?
actually, I actually recently heard about them. I don't know much.
So Peter Diamandis and actually Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach
Okay.
created Abundance 360, and so that's where I'm at now. Like that's a group that the goal of everybody is to develop a massively transformative purpose for their life,
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
and I don't have that yet. So all these people that I'm meeting have this MTP, they call it, right? And we get exposed to those people, and then so many resources of just the most phenomenal people doing phenomenal things to help us, think about, where we're going to be. So right now, as I mentioned, I'm my one of my main missions is to help support and create entrepreneurs. So
Mm,
that's kind of where I am now,
that's
and
wonderful.
and I feel like if I'm exposing myself to the things that I am and I'm focused on that, there won't be a shortage of opportunities that come my way, but I don't know exactly where I'll end up, and at this point I don't doesn't matter. I just looking for convergence will happen,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Are you gonna, are you, when you find these entrepreneurs that you like to help, do you consider yourself a coach at all or a mentor?
I do with some. I mean, I can't do that, nor do they all want that
Right.
from me. But I do, like even with the ERC Midwest, so we built a management team. My job is to mentor the general manager who runs the business every day. That's
That's good.
my number one, or one of my key priorities. So I love doing that. for the right circumstances, I do that.
That's wonderful. You dropped a lot of little nuggets here today, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
And thank you for spending your time with me because, I really mean this, and it sounds so like Lululemon's thing, but honestly, I find these conversations to be so fulfilling for me. And the most important thing happening for me right now, right? So I
Yes.
try to live my life with the moment. I do think about the future, of course, but I always feel like we're not promised tomorrow because we're not. And so when I have these conversations, they mean the world to me. So I want to thank you for being here on Straight Talk and taking the time out of your busy schedule to give us some golden nuggets. I really appreciate you, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
that.
inviting me, Neena. It's been fun. You're a very good interviewer, by the way.
Thank you. Before I let you go, though, I do want you to give us all of your handles where we can find you and follow you and support what you're doing, please.
Sure. So the easiest way is MikeMalatesta.com. That's where you find everything. It's Mike, and then the last name is Malatesta.com. Sounds like a mouthful, but it's really just like it's pronounced just like it's spelled. And I'm LinkedIn. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. And then, of course, my podcast is called How Did It Happen. You can
Good.
subscribe to that anywhere, and hope you do. And if you do, let me know and leave me a message and thank Neena.
Yes, please do. Please do, guys. So make sure that you go on there. I will have all of his information in all the show notes. So you can go ahead and follow his website, follow his podcast. His podcast is really good and he has great guests on there. So you will not be disappointed. Make sure you tune in. This is Neena Perez. This is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Until next time. Make sure that you visit our website at Straight Talk, no sugar added, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes and Stitcher or anywhere you listen to your podcast or on YouTube, so you'll never miss a show. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about our show, that would be awesome too. If you like this show, you might want to check out our book as well. It's Hit Me With Your Best Shot, How I Overcame a Hard-Hitting Life. I am Neena Perez, and I am here for you. If you are looking for private coaching, make sure that you email me at hello@straighttalknosugar.com. Until next time.